Hey guys, it's Mike from Jobber in English. Today I want to bring you another in-depth video about finding skilled worker or Tier 2 sponsorship. I've been helping international students and professionals find jobs in the UK since 2013, and I've sort of built up a little bit of knowledge and experience about how to sift through and overcome this difficult problem. This video is actually a follow-up from our really successful how to easily find Tier 2 visa sponsors. Thank you so much for all the views and all the comments. So today I want to take you through 3 filters to finding a Tier 2 sponsor, and there's going to be a slideshow and some screen shares and lots of helpful links to answer a super common question, which is basically, why won't this company sponsor my Tier 2 or skilled worker visa? And it's a question that comes up and I'm asked time and time again, and I think this video is really going to help a lot of people. So let's talk about the 3 levels of filters. I just want to introduce them to you, and then I'm going to go into some more detail and we're going to do some screen shares and stuff. So the 3 levels is basically, are they on the sponsor list? Then, do they have enough certificates of sponsorship? And finally, does the job meet the minimum salary to get sponsored? Now, why is it important to kind of go through this and to understand this? Because basically, we want to overcome the problem, and the problem is that you probably spend a lot of time applying for companies that don't sponsor, and you're not concentrating on companies that will sponsor, and because of that you start to lose the will to live. So just a really quick disclaimer, I'm not, nor do I claim to be, an immigration lawyer. This information is for educational purposes only and built on my experience of working with clients who have been in the same position as you for the past 8 years. So let's talk about what a sponsor is. So basically, this is a company that has applied for a sponsorship license successfully from the UK Home Office, and they can sponsor either skilled workers or temporary workers. And if you want more information, there's going to be a link down in the description below, just where you can go through and look at the gov.uk website. So what we're going to do now is we're going to jump into a screen share, and I'm actually going to show you trying to navigate what a lot of you will be familiar with, which is the Tier 2 and 5 sponsorship list. And this is where basically international students and professionals go wrong. Alright, so this is the .gov.uk register of licensed sponsors for workers. Some of you will be familiar with this. It gets updated every day, so it's last updated today, and it is an absolutely massive list. You used to be able to view this as a PDF, you can't anymore. So you can view it online, which is about as helpful as it sounds. You just get a giant table. I'm not sure how you're meant to make any sense of that. And the other thing that you can now do, which is probably even less helpful than the PDF in some ways, is that you can download a CSV or comma separated value file. So if we download this and have a quick look at it, this is a just enormous document. And when we start off, I'm going to talk to you about how you can filter this list shortly. But if we just have a look at how many records there are, so there are 47,000 records. So basically, if you don't really know what to do, you'd be sitting there thinking, well, so I just got to go through A to Z, 47,000 different companies. A lot of them are doubles because they'll sponsor for different routes, and we'll talk about that shortly. But I've spoken to a lot of students who've done exactly this. So you can sift it down and get the list down to only 32,358 companies, which is still pretty bonkers. So yeah, that's where most students are going wrong, because they're trying to use this list. They think that this is all there is, and you can start to understand why you would start to lose the will to live if you had to go through that every day. Alright, so for those who are just kind of thinking, well, how did I ended up trimming 14,000 or so results? First of all, we cut by type. So remember, there are 2 different types of sponsors, skilled worker and temporary worker. We cut those, that gets you about 4,500. Then we cut by route. So there are other routes, which is intra-company transfer, which is transferring from, say, Deloitte in Japan to Deloitte in the UK, which is not so relevant for you guys. Tier 2 sports person and Tier 2 minister of religion. The most common of those is ICT, intra-company transfer, and we lose about another 10,000 results, which leaves us about 32 and a bit thousand, which I know from experience is pretty much the ballpark number that we're looking for. But still, that's a lot of ag, and it's not something you would say would be easy by any stretch of the imagination. But the number one filter we want to think about is, are they on the list? Comparatively, there are 4 million companies in the UK, 500,000 new companies registered each year. And as a nation, we are built of small businesses, over 1 million small and medium-sized enterprises. Many of them have less than 10 staff. And the good thing is, a much easier thing to do is that you can use our free web app, which is called sponsortier2.com. Let's jump over to another screen share and I'll just compare how easy it is to use this. So this is sponsortier2.com. I think this has been going for about a year now. So one thing personally that I'm really passionate about is, though of course Job Ready English is a business and we do charge for services, we do provide a lot of tools and a lot of content that is free. And this was something which I just thought was a no-brainer. It's really easy, and importantly, you can subscribe to this for updates. So all you do is just type in the company name, click search, you see the company, you can even get a link, go and look to their website, which is cool. You can also see companies recently that have been removed and companies that have recently been added, which could be an indication that they are more likely to sponsor. There's no guarantee of that. You can also subscribe for free updates, which are sent out every Wednesday and Friday. Should that be every Tuesday and Friday? I don't really know. But I mean, it's really cool. It's easy to use. It gets used a lot, actually. I think that has, like 2,000 users a month, which is really crazy on that day. Wow, like 139 people used it. And it's completely free. Come along, it's just one of our gifts back to the community. I'm really happy to be able to serve a couple of hundred people, subscribe to the email as well, which they get regularly. I suppose at some point we will send other emails, but we haven't done that so far. So that link will be down in the description below, and it's much easier than using this or this or this. So that's filter one. If the company isn't on the sponsorship list, then no dice, no matter how much you want it. And that's kind of the top filter. So we'll move on to filter two. Are they actively sponsoring? Now, filter two and filter three are a little bit more complicated to understand. And also, we don't have all the information. Like in filter one, it's really easy for us to check whether they sponsor or they don't sponsor. So I'm going to talk to you a little bit so you just have an understanding. Basically, a company can be on the sponsorship list, but they may not have any certificates of sponsorship. Now, imagine this is like this is like having a gym membership but not going to the gym. Okay, so a company every April will request an allocation of certificates of sponsorship. A certificate of sponsorship is a digital reference number. So when you apply for your skilled worker visa, they will give you a digital reference number. So the Home Office can say, oh, hey, that's Steve. He wants to be a marketer at Mike's Donuts. And this is his reference number. So it sort of ties it all together. A company can be on the list, but they may have only wanted to sponsor one person. So you find them, you apply for the job, and they're like, oh, we're not sponsoring. And then you go, but why? You're on the list. Because they don't have any certificates of sponsorship. Bearing in mind, every time you apply for them as a company, it costs money. It costs about £200 each. So it's not nothing. And also, they may run out of costs. So say, for example, Mike's Donuts applies for 10 certificates of sponsorship in April, and by December it only has 3 left. I might want to save them for other departments, other members of staff, because whether you be a CEO or an entry-level graduate, costs are all equal. Certificates of sponsorship are all the same. So this one is a little bit more difficult to tell, but I'll just give you some tips for things to think about with this. For me personally, always start with large companies. That's why we have always placed emphasis on Times Top 100 and multinational corporations, because it's very likely they're going to have a lot of costs. So they're not going to be kind of thinking, oh my God, we're going to run out. SMEs tend to be hit and miss because, for example, when I ran another company and I was actually sponsoring international students, we might have 5 costs. So if 4 are gone, then I'm probably going to save one just in case I need it later on. And the last thing, which not a lot of people do, is always read the job description. Generally, if you look at the bottom of the job description, it will say to you, we're unable to offer sponsorship, this is only for British citizens, or you need to have lived in the UK for X years for security clearance. So that's a good way to think about filter number 2, but it is hit and miss. There are no guarantees. Even with large companies, I can think of PwC, there are certain roles that they don't sponsor, but they put that in the job description. Mazars, and there are other companies as well, but that actually brings us to filter 3, which is the job eligible for sponsorship? So you're going to have to bear with me. This is going to get a little bit more complicated. It's actually not that complicated, it's quite simple. You don't have to know it in detail. So basically the minimum salary for a skilled worker visa is about £25,000. But if you're under 26, studying or a recent graduate or in professional training, this goes down to £20,480. Now, every job corresponds to one of the 225 standard occupational classifier codes. So what I'm going to do is we'll jump again into another screen share, and I'm going to show you what I'm talking about, because otherwise it's just going to hurt your brain and mine. So these are the going rates for eligible occupation codes. There are 225. I counted them. I could have counted them wrong. I'm not going to count them again. And this is interesting because the minimum salaries are different for different roles. Production manager and director of mining energy, 37,500. So you're like, okay, that doesn't really apply. So what about musicians? £27,500. Photographer, £21,000. Fitness instructor, £15,600, right? So that one's a little bit weird, because then you think, but I thought I need to be paid £20,500. So that's something to check into with your employer. But these are all different, which is why it's quite important. Now, I've seen a lot of commentary about, but you might only need 90% or 70% of salary. And I realise for those who are not immigration lawyers, I really advise against trying to dig into the codes and the write-ups and the guidelines. I would just take this figure and think, this is the figure that I'm going to aim for. This is the figure that I need. If I want to be a property manager, then it means I need a salary that's going to be £26,300. As you can see, a SOC code may then correspond to other related job titles, but is not going to be perfect by any stretch of the imagination. And what does this mean? Well, if you're applying for a job and it's paying less than the salary, then are they even going to be able to sponsor you? Is the job going to be eligible for sponsorship? So what's some tips for navigating this? How can we, because again, this isn't perfect. A lot of jobs on their advertised don't actually mention the salary. Check the salary for your code. You'll know what type of job that you want to do, and you can just go onto that website. The description is going to be down below, and just check the salary for your code. The next thing is just check the job description, kind of see what sort of salaries they're pitching at, and look for bigger companies that can afford the salary. Now, I'm not saying that smaller companies can't, it's just that they're less likely to. For example, it's the same with startups, but it might be different if they've just been VC funded. Another thing to think about is avoid a position that pay low entry salaries. For example, like marketing. Traditionally, marketing is an area where I've had a lot of international students show interest, but as an entry level position, it will pay, I've seen roles advertised for sort of like £1,000 a month. So that's not going to cut it when it comes to sponsorship. Now just bear in mind, and I realise that this is maybe not as positive as it could be, but it could still not work. So there's a lot of information that's not public, and very often it is hit and hope. But what I would say to you is, start with the companies we know that work. So I'm going to put a link down into the description below. We released an enormous post about companies we know that are offering sponsorship in 2021 to international students. Why? Because we've helped clients to apply to those companies. Be methodical and also keep records. This is something that I consistently see people do, where they just kind of like, yeah, I've applied to lots of companies. Keep your records, quality over quantity, and don't take it personally. A lot of times when students speak to me, they almost seem angry. They're like, oh, I can't believe it. Why won't they sponsor me? It's nothing personal. It might be that, number one, they're not on the list. Number two, they don't have any certificates of sponsorship, they're saving them. Or number three, the salary isn't eligible, or they just don't understand. There are a lot of companies that I have had to help through a client who didn't actually know how to navigate the sponsorship process. And most importantly, proactively, just be persistent and make sure that you are applying early. That's really important. You want to be ahead of the game. Generally, getting sponsored and getting a work visa is a 3-month process. Anyway, that's everything from me. If you want to find out more about how we can help you, go to jobreadyenglish.com and send us through an inquiry. I wish you all the best of luck. If you like these videos, click like, click subscribe, drop a comment down below if you've got a question or another video that you'd like us to make, and best of luck.